Hey there. Today we are going to be doing vectors. Let's start off. I'm going to share my screen. And I'll drag this over here. And so what is vectors? Vectors, as we talked about, are shapes made by math. We talked a little bit about this in the text chapter last week, module last week. The generally, we'll learn about vector drawing in Photoshop before we do text. But for some reason, this class isn't scheduled like that. And in fact, vectors isn't scheduled to be taught for a long time. But because text and vectors are worked, are work exactly the same, it's better to teach them together. So usually I do 1 week on vectors and then 1 week on text, but this class had text first and then vectors in like week 11, which is silly because actually, the texts are part of the vector world. Yeah, so we're going to learn. I've moved the vector part up a bit, and we'll learn vectors today because you guys are doing it anyways. All right. So the objective of this module is to enable students to demonstrate and utilization of vector drawing tools in Photoshop. On completing the module, students will be able to apply their comprehension of fundamental vector shapes and manage Adobe Vector workflow. Next page. Vector paths, an introduction to all the path tools. So the vectors can be created a lot of ways, right? There's a pen tool, there's shape tools, there's path selection tools, which means that you can, once you've created a path using the pen tool, then you can modify it in various ways using the selection tool. There's the direct selection tool, which is the same thing. There's the type tool, which you guys are super familiar with at this point. Convert tool, this allows you to adjust the tension of a vector path, and the freeform pen tool, which works just like a regular pen and creates a million points as you draw. So we'll go through we'll go through all these. Move this over here, and I'm going to call up a new file, and I like using this, but wider. So I want, we'll just go with that. I don't really mind. It can be square. All right. Right here. Let's do this. I never figure out like what a good screen aperture is. I much prefer a 3 by or 1 by 8. So this is a square with 2 halves of a square on either side. Sort of. It doesn't really need to be that interesting. You can just call up any shape. Don't worry about this part of it. Please ignore what I'm doing. All right. I just want to be able to do that. Yeah. Okay. So these are the vector tools here. Let's start off with the pen tool. This is probably the most, well, these two are used the most. 3 of the text you've known before, right? Text, click down there. And you remember this whole thing, grab it and manipulate it. I think you probably have the text tool down if you didn't have it already before. Pen tool, the path tool we talked a little bit about, has these different kinds of ways you can operate it. The freeform pen tool operates just like a regular pen. So I put that down, I can just draw whatever line I want. And you can see it draws a path around us. So right now, it does a couple things. Generally, the default for drawing a path, right, is it comes in with a fill. Right now, the fill is white, so you can't see it. I'll make it black. And it has a stroke. And right now, this stroke is really big. And so just like when we're putting a stroke on the text, you can put a stroke on your vector shape. Now, I didn't close this, but had I gone like this, and it's hard to grab it. It would continue the shape and fill that up, and you can see it's still part of the same shape. It just continued it. And you can do stuff like this, like add to that shape, and it will continue to add to it. This is all still a single shape. Now, all right, so if I select this pen tool, you can see we have fill, right? And I can make this any color. Oh, I counted these two as extra shapes. You can also merge the shapes. Now I can change the color. All I did was put all three of those shapes on one layer. They're still, if you look at the edge, and I can select, this is the selection tool. If I select the tool, you can see where all the different shapes of vectors have come in. And it treats these, because I didn't click on the line exactly, it treats these as separate shapes, but still within the same shape layer. I know it's confusing. All right. Let me get rid of text. And let me get rid of shape. So that is the freeform pen tool. And like I said, you can draw whatever you want. As I make curves, it's putting down splines to accommodate for those curves. And I really hate that it's coming in like bright red. You can also turn the stroke off, but then you can't see anything. And keep in mind that we're making a shape now. We can make a path, and that's a little bit different. I'll show you that in a second. All right, make my fill black. And then anywhere where it thinks that there's basically a shape being created, it will try and put stuff in there. If I hide this and make this visible, then it looks like a path. But it's really a path with a stroke around it. All right, so that's the freeform tool. So I just draw and it kind of does it. Okay, hold on a second. So that's the freeform tool. It draws just like a pen, and you can take the freeform tool and use it for all your vector needs. Lots of people do. I can take the freeform tool and you have to watch. There we go. And see, you can draw with it just like a regular tool. But each of these things I've drawn here is actually a shape. I'll find the right one. And you can see every time I've lifted my pen, it's created a new layer. I can select that layer and I can manipulate it by moving these things around. Oh, his jaw should be like that. Sometimes it's hard to find what layer you're supposed to be working on. If you're having a hard time finding what layer, you can always do this. You can always do the selection tool and it'll pop it to the tool. As long as you're not always selecting the background, it'll select you to whatever thing you put on. If you're using this tool, it should do that too, but it doesn't always work as well, as you can see. But once we're on that path, let's see that. You can see that it lights up with the vector creation tools. Okay, so that's the pen tool. It's free form. It works like this, drawing outlines. It'll also work like that. And this, pen tool. If you close your shape, it'll make a filled shape. And you can put an outline on it if you want. And control the depth of it here with that. That's shape. The other thing the pen tool does is path, or all the tools do is path. So now when I do this, it's just creating that line. It's not creating the inside part of it. And these, in order to have it fill, need to be connected. So you create this path. And then mine didn't connect, but if you connected it, then it would create a fill. See that? Oh, I had that layer selected, that's why. So it did turn my path into a fill, or switch it to fill. Okay, let's move on to the next tool. That's the freeform tool. The next tool is actually the pen tool. And this is what most people use. So let me get rid of all this, because it's very accurate. If you use the pen tool, it creates a lot of unneeded points. So I'll grab the pen tool and do, like, if I wanted to make oops, set back to shape. If I wanted to make the pen tool selected here, hold on. Freeform tool, freeform pen tool. I wanted to make a semicircle like that. Very hard to make an accurate sort of shape, or even close to it. You can see all these bumps and stuff because I'm drawing it freehand. So think of this like your selection tool. If I use the freehand selection tool, it's hard to get a very accurate shape. However, with the selection tool, if I use the pre-made shape one, I can get a rectangle, or an oval, or a perfect circle. So that's sort of the difference between the freeform tool and the pen tool. Pen tool allows you, oops, I'll go to a new layer. The pen tool my color so we can see here, allows you to put down a point. And if I just click point, 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 point. It makes very rectilinear shapes. All I'm doing is pushing down, clicking down, click, 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 click. And you can see it makes very sharp tools. But if I want to make this shape, I can push down, hold, and drag a little bit, and it gives you these little balance beam thingamajigger here. And then I can do it again up here, and then you can see it gives me a curve. And every time I do that, it gives me a curve. And then I can also, if I feel like it, just click down again, and it gives me the straight. Now these balance beam things you control with this here, the direct select tool, where I can click on these shapes, and by clicking on one of these ends here, I can extend or reduce the amount of bulge this has. If I bring it all the way in, it becomes linear. So now that's in there. And if I do this one too, you can see it's a little squirrely. Those are, so, but now I have a straight line. So in order, if I were trying to do a more perfect one of these, right, I would do the other side here because I want the bottom line. So half of this goes to the top line and the other, sorry, half of this goes to one side and the other half goes to the other side, and you can manipulate them individually. If you want a straight line with a curve on top, like this one, then you would click on the line and you drag it as close to the middle as possible. And the closer you get to the middle, the closer you get it to the middle, the more 90 or straight that's going to be, linear. There we go. I knew there was a word. And so now I can come in here and start messing with these. And this always draws a perfect curve. It uses math to do a very nice in and out curve for you. So I can actually get sort of a perfect half dome shape where this one's very inaccurate, this one then becomes super accurate. And I can even, if I hold down the pen tool, it has options for adding an anchor point or removing it. So I can come here and hit delete anchor point, which is that, and then come back to the direct effect tool. And I can now manipulate this so that it's even more of a perfect curve. Yeah, right. These two handles are allowing me to manipulate this curve without even that middle point. I started out with that middle point, but I don't really need it. I could have just done this. So essentially I've drawn the shape with only 2 points, two very linear ones and two very spliney ones. Unfortunately, I work in 3D a lot. So when I say spline, that refers to this shape, a curve created with math. And then I still have all these other options available to me. I can control the stroke on that. Make that as big or small as I want, and change the color, and all the blending options are available. Adding overlays and drop shadows and all sorts of stuff. Okay. So those are 2 different ways to use the pen tool, or 3 different ways. I forgot we covered the freeform tool. So most of the time, people don't work using the freeform tool. New people do. It's hard if you're tracing a shape. Sometimes it's really good. Although there's a content aware one here we'll go into in a second. But most people that are professional vector drawers use this one where they do a point. So for instance, if we're going to recreate that face that we were doing, they would do something like this. And you can see I'm like putting a point down and kind of dragging it to make it have a better curve. And this one, oops. Square it off chin. And then if I want to put eyes on it, then I need to start a new one. Well, you can, let's see. Right, I can do this with two, put one here. Actually, I think I need three at first. There you go. So you can do it with two, and you can see how the computer is helping you make more perfect shapes. This is okay, but that, you know, came out great. And then no, not that. This do. Oops. I can here. I'm clicking in a different layer so that it doesn't add to the previous shape. I want the nose to be able to be moved. So I've created a layer here, and instead of drawing everything here, every time I want to start a new shape within this, like a mouth, right? I need to create a new layer. Otherwise, if I click within here, it'll just consider that I'm still working on this. If I click out here, it'll create a new layer. So just to be safe, I create a new layer. Create a new layer. Go to the pen tool. And create the pupil. And of course you can, now that this is a thing, right, you can duplicate that layer and move it around. And now all these pieces are movable because they're all separate layers that I've created here. um, so that is the pen tool. That's the freeform tool and the pen tool. There's also this called the content aware tool, which is if I have a shape on here, let me find some shape to put on here. Start a new file. And this is a picture that somebody did on the internet in Vector. And you can see, well, I've got the content aware shape tool, so it's selecting things. I don't have the vector version of it. I just have the rastered version of it. But I'll show you. Let me put these to get rid of. Let me merge these together so that I can work on this. So each one of these different pieces, this piece, this piece, this darker piece, this lighter piece is all done. These are all different vectors overlaid on top of each other to make this work. So and we could recreate this using the pen tool. Real fast, I'm going to show you the content aware tool, and then we'll go back and we'll recreate this. I think that'd be a good idea to show you, because our homework is to create a self-portrait. And it doesn't have to be cartoon, it can be realistic. I've listed some examples in the module for you guys to look at. All right, so we have the content aware tool. Content aware tool uses contrast in the image to kind of see what you're doing and then copies over it. So you can see as I get close to this line, it wants to put a shape down there. So for instance, that could be my shape, and my fill could be, if I click on this, and I can select that darker color. And now I can hide the stroke a little bit. It's a little thick. And you can see that it's perfectly copied the outside of her head, which is great. All right. Now I can hide that. I'm going to grab my fill, start off with that color, and then again using the content aware tool. Oh, grabbed her earring. No, don't want that. Oh, you can see it doesn't work all the time. So it worked great for the outside here. It probably worked okay for this piece here and stuff. But well, I want to grab her face, and it's not really allowing me to do that because there's not enough difference between this and this. It keeps grabbing the earrings and stuff. So for this, I'm going to go and switch back to the pen tool. There's also a curvature pen tool, which just all that does is automatically puts the curves down. It doesn't give you the options for straights. So I'm going to select the pen tool, starting at the very top of her head. I'm going to stretch out my line, and then I'm going to match my lines roughly to the shape of her face. And you can see I'm pulling these out, and as I pull these out, I'm stretching out the trapeze or the balance beam thing, so that the edge, you can see I'm kind of manipulating the edge till it matches the edge of the character's head there. Some of them get a little weird, I won't lie. And so now if I turn on that, oh, how did that get to the wrong color? Back to that. So now I have the face, which is on top of this layer, and the hair. There's the hair, there's the face. Get rid of that. Let's see how I did with the face. The face could be a little bit bigger. So now we can zoom in a little bit, and I can make sure I have that selected. And I kind of pull the points a little bit. I think overall we're okay. And if you need to make like a sharper edge, if you take two of these things and push them together a little bit, you can see it kind of works the curve. You get a handle, get it? That's what these are called. you get the hang of it uh, after you've messed with it, or if this is something you want to do. It becomes some people are really good at it, and some people kind of just muddle through it. And it's not everybody's cup of tea. And obviously, Photoshop does this, but it's way better in Illustrator. There are way more tools to help you out. This is what Adobe Illustrator does the best. All right, so I have the face, and then off, and I have the hair. So let's do the neck. Real quick here. I'll do the whole body. Now you can see that this is now in my way. I can't tell what the heck's going on. And that happens sometimes when you're tracing. So you can just turn down the opacity of it so that you can see where you're working. And then I'm gonna just come straight across there like that. I'm gonna move this one in front of the hair, but behind the head. And then when I turn on the face, you can see that it has, it's behind it, right? They like paper dolls, like this is in front of this, and that's behind that. In fact, the hair, I don't think I ever finished it, which is not great. Bad job. But I can take this and kind of bring these down so that they're lower on the neck. It doesn't really matter. The neck and the head cover that stuff anyways, but it's always good to, it's like, wait, why can't I see that? This one, right? It's because I turned it down. There we go. Cool. And don't worry about the shadows. We'll go in and fix those here in a second. All right. So here we have, and we should name these. Face, neck, neck, hair, then I can turn these off. And what else do we have to create? We have to create the eyes and the lips and the earrings. So what you want to do when you're working in vectors is start in the back and work your way forward. So things that are on top of other things like the eyebrows and the eyes and the nose and the mouth and the earrings and this thing and the shadows, in fact, are all on top of these pieces. So I've gone in and created the base of what we're doing, and now we can work our way up from there. So if I go in here, I'm going to zoom in so I can really see. I should have chosen the higher res picture. And I change my color. Make sure I'm not on the layer because it'll change that color's layer, that layer's color. Change that to whatever color her eyes are. It's like a purple. Never want to use full white or full black. And now I want to, the pen tool. I'm going to click here, drag that out. Here. It goes like that. Comes back the other way. And there. Perfect. Let's make this way smaller. Don't worry, we're gonna have to do the eyelashes separately. And And then we didn't really get the shape we wanted straight away, so I'm going to reduce the opacity. And I'm going to grab this tool. I think I need another point in there, so I'm going to come to the pen tool and do add a point right here. Go back to this. Remember, you can get sharper corners if you put them together. It's kind of like drawing with a garden hose. And I just manipulate these until I have sort of that shape. You can see I'm just bringing these handles in and out and kind of moving them until they're sort of close to what I'm going for. This could be a lot tighter. I'm going to add another point in there. Add point here because I think this is a tighter deal. Let's zoom in a little bit. Go back to my manipulation tool. And see how that comes to a point. I want mine to also come to a better point than that. Ooh, too much. Somewhere in there. Great. Maybe this. More like that. All right, so I'm gonna make another layer here and come back to my pen tool, not my add pen tool, but my regular pen tool. And now I want to follow this line, but make it a little bit bigger. Maybe not that big. And of course, 420 is way too much. So I'm gonna make this like 3. And then I want the fill to be black. And now I can come in here and kind of clean this up a little bit. I should have, if you have, there you go. There we go. Now we have an eyebrow, and now all we need is the pupil. So this one is eye. This one is brow. Add another layer. Now I need to create this pupil. For this, I'm going to use the shape tool. So this is the shape tool, and the shape tool is just like the pen tool in what it makes, except that it makes pre-made shapes right? Squares, circles, and stuff. So I'm going to make a ellipse, or a square, a circle. And I'm going to make this circle so that it fits in her eye. And this one, I want the fill to be black and the stroke to be 0. And so the properties panel popped up when I created that, but it's the same as using this up here, right? If I were to select the brow, for instance, I could also open up wherever it went, the properties there, and it would allow me to manipulate the same stuff. All right, we dock you over here. Yeah, be that way. I'll just close you. Okay, back to the shape tool. So if I have the pupil, for instance, here, and I'm rocking that, I can change all that same stuff here. Do we have here? Great. Now what we want to do is, well, actually, I will do it in a second. I'll make the eye 100%. Then I'm going to take all 3 of these and duplicate them. And of course, that doesn't work quite well because they're facing the same way. So I need to take not the pupil, but the other 2 bits here and go edit, transform, flip horizontal, because it's a Photoshop shape. So we can use Photoshop shape tools to manipulate it. And it's actually a little big. So I'm going to hit Control T for transform and rotate it sort of into place, because it's a little smaller. Keep in mind, this is somebody's illustration, so. All right, what do I do with my pupil? Pupil. Did I not copy the pupil? Oh, there it is. Okay, and then I can move this over here. I can use Control T to shrink it, because you can, a vector shape is a lot like a raster shape in that you can then use the transform tools to manipulate it. You can't run filters on them. Well, you can't run some filters on them, but you can do quite a bit with them. All right, that's eye, so eyebrow, and just make sure we're happy. Like, I think this could be much rounder, or I could just remove that one. And back and forth we go. Yeah, I think that's a much nicer shape. I'll probably get rid of that one too. Welcome to working in vectors. That one and this one, right? I'm going to get it out. That's right. We'll leave it like that. All right. I think my eyes are crazy big compared to hers. I can select them all. Hit Control T. Scale them down a little bit. I can even squish them like that. And the vectors just move. I can also grab one of them and move that over. I can, if I just select the layers for these things, I can move them as a whole and rotate them. Oops, I can rotate them individually. that, and that. Or is the same thing. Or I can squish it like this, and not like that. Like once you've created the shape, then the shape can be moved around anywhere in your picture. And now if I turn on the face and the neck and the hair, you can start to see the vector. I didn't do as good a job as this person who drew this picture. Trying to get through it quicker. All right, so now we have the eyes. These are all the eyes. And if you want in a layer here, you can group these together. So I can go new group from layers and call these eyes. And you can see it puts them in the thing here. And now if I want to just control the eyes, I just have to select that group and I can move them all over the place. If I need to do individual ones, I hit this little box here and it opens that up. I can also lock it so I don't accidentally select it. But it's a lot of stuff to have showing in your layer stack. So you want to be able to work on other stuff, right? Like I need to hide these things so I can go back in here and keep working. Okay, so above the eye layer, I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to create two elliptical tools, elliptical shapes, little teeny tiny ones for the nostrils. There's one. And these ones, I'm going to have just be a black fill, no stroke. Close that. And then I can duplicate it. Perfect. I can even merge those two because they're really easy to recreate. Like that nose. They're still vector. They're just, both of those shapes are now on the same layers. Like I can still come in here and grab them with the tool and make them weird shapes if I want. Great. So now let's do the lips. With the fill tool, I'm going to select that lip color. I'm going to create a new layer. And then I'm using the pen tool. I'm going to start right in the middle here. And obviously 24 is way too big a stroke for that. And it totally ignored me selecting the lip color. There it is right there. And now I have to go in here with the handles and make sure that they're working well. I think I put that at 1. So if you change my nose color, that's what I changed with the color thing. Great. Reduce that. I can go in and match it up a little bit better. It's hard because it's not really very resolution-y. It's hard to see what you're doing. All right, and then name that one lips. And then what I want to do is create another layer, and I'm going to use the pen tool, no fill. This keeps remembering that it's 20. It's very, seems very angry about that. And with this, I'm just drawing, I'm using the pen tool to, in this sense, to just draw a line with it. I'm not going to shut it down, close it or anything. Right, so it's just drawn that line. Oh, and I accidentally drew it on the picture, so no problem. I can select the tool, come up here, create a new layer. I forgot to create a new layer, and paste. Shift Control Alt B. No, paste. Where's my lip tool? Where's my lip? Yeah. I'm sure somewhere on here I have a line that I'll be regret that I didn't more carefully do that. All right, you go away. Try it one more time. Let's make our lips full resolution or full opacity. I can delete that. I can create a new layer once more time with the lips. Yeah. Great. And so we're kind of getting there. And then we're just kind of going to repeat this process. Create a new layer. And let's say we want to do the eyebrows. Pen tool here. And we want the fill on that one. Purple. Maybe darker purple than that. And duplicate, edit, transform path, flip horizontal, move that one over. Great. And do the earrings, we can use, this is kind of fun, we can use a triangle. Yep. And the triangle colors is lighter purple. And it's thicker. And so this triangle this is kind of rounded edges, and this one's super sharp. So that's what this tool does here. And if I click next to this tool, I can round the corners down. See how it's taking those points and moving them away. If it's sharp, right, the points are right in the corners, and you get this very sharp edge. But if I move this down again here, this corner thing, that's called round corners. You can see it gives me a slightly better shape. Make those smaller. And up here. Remember, because I'm working from the lower, I'm working from the background forward when you work at vectors. Let's change the color of that. I can just select this, come in here, and just get my eyedropper working. Okay, we make this thing, this dress sashy thing. Um, and I'm just clicking the eyedropper. There's that. Hit OK. Great. Okay, now we can go in and turn all this stuff back on, and you can see we're kind of getting close. So the parts that I haven't done yet are the shadows. So let's turn off all this stuff for now. And we can look at her hair. We'll do the shadow on her hair or the highlight on her hair. I want to create, I have the hair selected. I want to create another shape above that. And then I can come back in here and guess what tool we can use? Content aware tool. And I just go like this. And I get my shape. I come in here, switch from the content aware tool to the pen tool. And I really only need like some of this. So actually, let's do this. I can marquee select these and delete them. I'm drawing a box around them because the only part of the hair that's highlighted is over here on the side. So once I've done that, I can then grab the regular pen tool or the freeform tool, click on that and continue that line, and then choose a fill for it. And then we have an exact shadow over the top of it. And we can repeat this with all our bits. Change that color. Something like that. And you don't even have to be that careful with it, right? Like I have this sash here, and I need a shadow here on this part of the sash. So we're doing that sash. So I can come in here and select part of this, or create a new layer over the sash, right? And I can just draw over the top of it. And of course, because I connected, I have to go in and work the handles a little bit so I can get that sharp edge, and then manipulate these ones in. Then all I need to do is select that color, and then come in here and then choose a darker version of that color. And then I get the shadow. Now, if you want to put a shadow over a bunch of parts of this all at the same time with vector, you create a new whatchamacallit, layer. And then I'm going to do this using the freeform tool. And I can just draw over the top. Okay. I can give that a fill. And then I can come over here and hit multiply, right? Because that's this is, when we hit this, it affects the layer below it. It tells how this layer reacts to this layer. And in this case, this layer reacts to all the layers below it. And then I can lighten that up quite a bit. I like doing shadows that way. It doesn't work for highlights, right? But it does work for shadows nicely. And that's how you can do a vector self-portrait. We'll get into talking more about the shape tools and how to, there's a whole bunch of library shape tools I need to introduce you to in the next section.